let's all stand together to start off the service, and we're going to sing the first, second, and last verse of Joy Unspeakable. If you like to open your hymn book to page 530, that's where we'll be for tonight. Good to be here this evening. I'm going to ask Brother Dalton, would you please pray and bless our service tonight? Amen. A couple things to go over for announcements tonight. Starting off on May 21st, we have the Men's Fellowship. That'll be at 6 p.m. We have a sign-up sheet out in the Welcome Center, and we're going to have some goulash and a couple sides. Know that'll be a good time. Next, we have on May 26th, the church-wide picnic. That'll be at the Powell Farm. Know that'll be a great time. It always has been. And on June 16th, we have Father's Day, just another chance to come out here and to appreciate the fathers that God has placed in our lives. And then June 23rd through 27th, we have our VBS. Know it's going to be a great time this year. Pray that you would help us and pray for us as we get things set up and started for that. And I think that's all I have by way of announcements. And I think our Pee Wee is going to come up and bless our hearts now.
All right, this is our Pee Wee class for this year. Didn't they do a great job? They love the pig song, imagine that, right? So unfortunately, Miss Katie, who helped me this year, couldn't be here tonight. She's not feeling well, so I want to publicly say a big thank you to Miss Katie for helping me out this year. It was great working with her and with these young ones. We had 10 or 11 most nights. We've got a few that aren't here tonight, but we're going to go through and honor our Pee Wee class for this year. So our first is Levi Ainge. Lizzie Creech. Sedona Falk. Sierra Falk. And Sky Jones isn't here, but if Grandma or Grandpa is, we'll get it to her. We have Amelia Mills. Benjamin Mills. Paisley Rouse. And then we have a couple that aren't here, Rosie and Spencer, but we'll try to get those to them as well. We had a few with perfect attendance this year, and that's pretty impressive so thank you, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, because I know that's not easy with full schedules and people getting sick, and that's a lot to say. So we have two from the same family. Miss Amelia and Benjamin both had perfect attendance this year. And then Miss Paisley Rouse had perfect attendance. And then we want to acknowledge a nearly perfect attendance. Now, I'm not, always the one that gives everybody an award, but this young man missed only one, and it was a couple weeks ago when his family was on vacation, so he didn't really have much of a choice. But I know he was in church somewhere, just not here with us. So nearly perfect would be Mr. Levi Ainge. Again, it's a great program for these young people. We had a few new ones for the first time. It starts at age 4, so some of them aren't used to being in a classroom setting and sitting and raising hands and all the things. But we had a great time learning, and they did a great job learning different character traits. This month it was being a helper, which is important. We need to help them understand that they can help in every facet at home, whether it's putting their own toys away or putting their own clothes away, or just simply, running errands for mom through the house. That's always a good thing. I want to acknowledge there's 4 of them that will be moving up next year, and it's 4 years old through first grade. And so we have 2 young ladies and 2 young men who will exit the Pee Wee class, which is sad. Mr. Levi, if you'll step down for a second. Benjamin, Sierra, and Lizzie. So these 4, you can just stand, turn and face everybody, smile awkwardly. So we just want to say thank you for your hard work and your dedication in Pee Wee class, and I know Patch will be looking forward to having a couple new additions and some great kids next year. So thank you.
We have had a wonderful time in our Patch the Pirate Club this year, and I want to take this opportunity. We want to thank the church for the investment that you make. You buy all the books, all the things that you see, and we just thank you for your investment in this program, but more importantly, in the lives of these sailors. So we thank you for that. We want to thank the parents and grandparents who come and bring your children each time, and we also helping them in their daily devotions and all. We really thank you for that. Just very quickly, we want to go over just a little bit about what Patch the Pirate is. It's a 9-month program that kind of runs concurrent with the school year, and it's to teach godly character traits in the lives of your children. And we do that through the medium of several things. First of all, we have a weekly Bible lesson and activity page, which is led by Miss Ellen. She does that each week, and the kids work on that. Then we incorporate music, and Miss Lindsay comes in and teaches the music, also teaches a little bit of theory, some beginning things of music, so that hopefully you have some good choir members when, to add to the ones you already have. And then they also do devotions every day. They have a very small devotion, probably only takes them 5 minutes, but it kind of gets them in the groove of doing daily devotions. And all these things, and then they have a yearly story that I give, all these come together to introduce a godly character trait. Sometimes it's about kindness, sometimes truthfulness, sometimes loyalty, just a variety of different things that are all incorporated into this one godly character trait. So hopefully that works and they can learn that, and they enjoy the singing, and I know you enjoy when they do get to perform. Tonight is our award night, and we want to award some sailors with some special awards here. I will be giving the attendance awards out. Miss Ellen will come and give those that have been faithful sailors that have completed their devotions for this year. And then Miss Lindsay will come with 2 special things, and I'll let her explain that when she comes, awards. All right, so we kind of did the same thing Miss Carrie did. When the kid only misses one time, you hate not to. So we have, first of all, 2 sailors who did not miss a single time. And you can probably guess that if you've caught the siblings of the others. So tonight we want to recognize Alex Mills and Ella Mills for absolute perfect attendance. Y'all can come on. Alex. A comes before E, and then she's got a gift for you over there. Alex and Ella, congratulations. Then we have some that only missed one time, and most of the time it's out of their control. What I do? Okay, but they only missed one, and they did the requirement to make it up, and we want to recognize them tonight. And the first one goes to Jalen Ainge. Luke Ainge. And Ruth Creech.
So I get to have the honor of giving out the Devotions Award. This is for faithfulness and doing their weekly devotions throughout the year. And the first one goes to Miss Jalen Ainge. Good job, JJ. Next one goes to Brother Luke. Then Sister Ruth Creech. Sister Cheyenne Falk. Sister Montana Falk. Brother Alex Mills. Sister Ella Mills, literally Sister Ella Mills. Ella. And Miss Callie Murray. And then Riley Tidings, and she's not here tonight. Okay.
All right, I want to start out by saying how proud we are of each of you kids. Pee-wee and Pat, y'all have done an amazing job all year. And didn't they do a wonderful job this morning with the choir? We're very proud of each of them. And we want to recognize two in our Patch Club that will be graduating out of Patch and going into the youth group. And we have mixed feelings because we don't want them to leave us, but we're excited that they get to graduate into the teen group and be a part of that. And we will miss their sweet spirits and their leadership in the class. And they were certainly eligible to get the Super Sailor Award, but we want to recognize them for this special award. And this goes to Jalen Ainge and Ella Mills. And just before we announce the Super Sailors, I do want to say a special thank you to Miss Ellen and Miss Carolyn. They worked so hard and helped me in so many ways. Miss Carolyn does a great job of keeping good records of attendance, faithful attendance, and devotions throughout the year. And we're very thankful for that. That actually helps us in aiding to see who gets the Super Sailor by going back to the good records that she keeps, very detailed. And then Miss Ellen, she does a great job preparing for and studying to teach the Bible lesson each week, and that is for the godly character traits that she had mentioned earlier. And so I'm very thankful for them and their help. So now we want to recognize the Super Sailors of the Year, and this is a new one for us, but we actually have three-way tie this year. And so we thought it would not be fair if we had to leave anybody out. So we're going to recognize all three of them. And just as a reminder, this is what we look for. We go back through the records that Ms. Carolyn has taken, but we look for perfect devotions, if they get their devotions not only completed, but completed on time each week. And then we look for a faithful attendance. And if they were to miss for various reasons, they can be eligible to still get that faithful attendance award if they say their make-up memory verse. So we look for that. We look for participation in class and good attitudes and just good spirits all around. So our first Super Sailor of the Year, 2023-24, is Miss Ruth Creech. And our next Super Sailor of the Year, 2023-24, goes to Mr. Luke Ainge. Good job. And our final Super Sailor of the Year for 2023-24 is awarded to Alex Mills. Great job. Thank you again, parents, for making sure your kids are here each week and helping them with their devotions throughout the year. 9 months is a long time to continually do their devotions, but they've worked hard, and we are so proud of each of them. And we will have our last meeting this Wednesday, so make sure all the Pee-wee and Patches are here, and we're going to have a pizza party, so you don't want to miss it. We'll have some fun games and things, so be sure to be here.
Let's all stand together for the second song of the night. We're going to sing the first, second, and last verse of When We All Get to Heaven. If you would like to turn there, it's on page 692 in your hymnals.
When
to go now into our time of tithes and offering. Brother Wayne Tedder, would you please stand and bless the offering?
Amen. Now, I know every single Sunday is special, but like pastors, Youth Sunday does hold a special place in my heart for obvious reasons. But it's also just such a blessing every time to watch all the young people get involved in some aspect, because it's never too early, to get involved in serving your fellow brothers and sisters and in serving our Lord and our Savior. So I am so grateful for the wonderful attitudes that they have had and just the preparation that they have had. And I thank you to everybody who's just had a hand in getting Youth Sunday ready. It does not go unnoticed, and the Lord will bless you for that. And I do always appreciate the chance just to be able to fill in for Pastor when he gives me the opportunity. And I always love the opportunity to preach for us on Youth Sunday. Now it's time for the real young preacher to get up here and preach for us on Youth Sunday. So, Brother Dan, you got to get up here right now, all right? So, but quickly here, as we are going to get ready to get rolling here for this, we're going to go ahead and be in 1 Samuel for this evening. When I heard Pastor say in his text he was going to 1 Samuel this morning, I instantly got a twitch in my eye and thought to myself, don't you dare do it. Don't you dare go there right now. Thankfully, he did not go there for this morning. So, 1 Samuel chapter 17 for us for this morning. And we are going to jump around a bit into 1 and 2 Samuel a little bit for this evening. My papers are messing up on me here. I'm sorry. One thing that we try to stress, especially to our teenagers and even to the young ones as well, is the simple fact of this world needs more godly leaders in it. And this is something that these young people need to learn straight from when they are as young as possible so they can begin, God can begin preparing their hearts, and they can begin preparing for whatever role God may have for them. And in 1st and 2nd Samuel, I just want us to point out a couple of things to us that just show us the characteristics of not only a leader, but specifically a godly leader that we find here in Samuel. Now, as we remember, David was a really young person that God had huge plans for throughout his life. And David was a long way, when you look at Samuel 17, he was a long ways away from fulfilling those plans at that point in his life. He wasn't quite ready for the full responsibility God had planned for him. And so many times we like to think about the king that David became, but we forget about the young man that he was first, because that young man had to learn a lot and had to go through a lot before he was ready to become the king that God desired for him to be. And we can't forget that before that young boy was a king, first he was a shepherd boy. And that is very important for us to try to see here in the life of David, as we will see in just a little bit. And from the life of David, we're going to see some of the traits of a godly leader. And young people especially, I want you to understand something here, but this is something that's meant for everybody, because a new leader can be made at any time. But leaders are not born, they are made. Nobody is born a leader. You develop into it. God trains you into it, and he wants you to become one, each and every one of us. So 1 Samuel 17, if you please stand with me at this time for the reading of God's word. We will jump around a little bit here, so we're going to just read the first few verses here. But we're going to begin in 1 Samuel 17, starting in verse 34. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And when I went after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth, and when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, Go, and the Lord be with thee. The simple truth that we're going to look at for tonight is that leaders are made. They're not born. Father God, thank you so much for this time that we have to be able to come into your house, Lord, and just to hear and just study your word, Lord, and to see what you have to teach us. Father God, I pray that right now you will just be with me, Lord. Please just empty me of myself. Fill me with your spirit and hide me behind the cross, Lord. Give me the words that need to be spoken, Father. We thank you for the wonderful opportunity that we have just to be able to come to your house, Lord, and just to worship you with our fellow brothers and sisters. Please, Lord, be with us throughout the rest of our time for this evening. Please give me clarity of thought, Lord. Please give me liberty to preach. We thank you for everything that you do for us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. You may be seated. Y'all are welcome. I've got me a stopwatch up here, so I make sure I'm not going too crazy up here, all right? So you can thank me for that one later. But here in this first passage that I want us to see here in David's life is the simple truth of this. A godly leader must be diligent in his tasks, in his work, what he is about doing right now. You see, in order to be successful in anything, you have got to learn to be diligent in that thing, whether it be at a job, whether it be at a sport, whether it be at whatever. And if you're going to get good at anything, you've got to work at it, and you've got to practice it, you've got to be diligent in it. And this was something that David had learned from a very young age, of being diligent in what he was doing right then as a shepherd boy. Now, I don't think many people will argue against this, but success requires persistence and hard work. That is how life is. That's how it has always been, young people. If you want to succeed in life, you want to succeed in anything, you must work hard, you must be persistent, you must be diligent in what you are doing. And that is something that our society does not teach these days. In fact, I actually saw something where millennials, which is the current generation right now, believe in a little thing called going straight to the top out of the gate. And that is not something that will happen for people most of the time. And that's not what happened for David either. Yes, God had chosen David to become a king, but first he wanted him to learn how to be a shepherd boy at the beginning. You see, in biblical times, when we look at the position a shepherd usually held, in biblical times it was very common for the youngest brother of a family to actually be the shepherd for that family. It was the oldest son that would typically inherit most of his father's estate, most of his father's belongings, and it would be the younger brother who would take care of it almost for them. And this was the position that David found himself in, being the youngest son of his father, Jesse. And something else to understand, shepherds were not highly respected in their society either. This was not a job that people sought after. This was not typically a job people desired to take. And yet still we see in David's life, even though it wasn't a glamorous position, it wasn't anything flashy, he did it diligently every single day. You see, leadership requires being diligent in the work that has been given to you, not the work that you want to go and do. Leaders will say, whatever it is I have to do, I will do it to the best of my abilities. All right? That is something that young people must learn, is that whatever the job you have been given, the task you are in, the position you are in, do it to the best of your abilities each and every day. All right? Leaders also are not always in a position of leadership, by the way. You can be a leader just by being a worker on a job site. You can be a leader just by being a student in your classroom. You can be a leader just by being another player on your ball team. Doesn't mean you have to be the captain. You can be a leader without being in a position of leadership. This is what David learned here as he was a shepherd. Who was he leading? He was just leading a bunch of sheep, but he learned how to do it well while he was young. David had decided that even though his job wasn't maybe what he had desired, it wasn't going to be as nice as his brother's position, he was going to do it to the best of his abilities, and he was going to give God the glory for that. Now, how do we know that David wanted to do his absolute best at it? Let me ask you something. Would you go off and fight a bear and a lion with your bare hands if you're not trying to give it your best? Because David was a young guy at this point. He was no grown man at this point. Most people believe he was in his early to mid-teens at the very best right now. He's a young buck right now. And David is attempting to do this job to the best of his abilities. He tells Saul here in the passage we just read, David tells him that when a lion and a bear came after my flock, I went after the lion and the bear, which is a pretty impressive thing to me. Something that I actually learned just this past week is that bears actually, aside from humans and other bears, have no natural predators in the wild. But David was willing to go after that bear to defend his sheep because he was going to do this job right. And what a beautiful, beautiful picture that is of Christ coming for his sheep as well. Enduring the dangers and enduring the difficulties, he went after each and every one of us, as David would learn to do while he was young here. All right, this here is a challenge to anybody who desires to be a leader. And by the way, men, doesn't matter if at work or whatever, you're a leader in your home, so you better be listening up for this. Leaders are made, they're not born. Even if your job isn't fancy, even if it's not the one that's front and center, getting all the glory, getting all the praise, getting all the thanks for something, do it to the best of your ability because God is watching you. Colossians chapter 3 says this, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. Do whatever you do as if you are doing it for God, not for men. I think if we all walked around with that sort of mentality, we would go about everything a little bit differently. And this is the mentality that David himself walked around with every day. He could have just simply said, hey, a lion bear took my sheep. Dad will understand while I'm not going to go after that thing. David decided, nope. I will do this job. I'm going to do it the best that I can, and I'm going to trust in God to keep me safe while I do it. And this is the very thing that God did. Because not only did David fight it with his slingshot, but you also see David had to fight these things with his bare hands. Because it says here that he grabbed it by its beard and he then slew it himself. So not only was he tangling with the lion up in here, he was getting his hands on it as well, determined to protect his sheep and to get it back home the way he needed it to, because he was diligent in his task and in his work. Leaders are diligent where they are. Young people, remember this. Whether it's in school, I understand what it feels like to be tired of school. I understand what it feels like to not want to go home and do your chores and do your homework. You be diligent where you are because God will bless you for it because He's always watching you. Even if it's not something that will get you a lot of thanks from whoever it might be, whether it be your teacher, your principals, or your parents, do it as if you are doing it unto the Lord. Not for your parents, not for other people. You are doing it for the Lord. That was the first thing that I saw here in the life of David. For being a godly leader is that we must be diligent and learn that while we are young. And here's the second thing that I would like us to see. And we're actually going to backpedal in our verses a little bit, back to verse 26 of 1 Samuel 17. And this is the simple truth of this, is that a godly leader must have courage as well. Look at this here. There's a few ways that David displays courage here in this passage. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. Let's pause for a second. David is visiting his brothers right now, who are currently soldiers in the army of Saul. They are at war against the Philistines. And for several days at this point, Goliath, the giant, the Philistine, has been coming out and issuing a challenge to Israel, saying, Send me just one person to come and fight me. If he kills me, we will be your servants. If I kill him, you will be our servants here. And for days this has gone on, and not a single person has dared approach Goliath to accept this challenge, not even King Saul, who, according to Scripture, was head and shoulders above everybody else. So David is visiting his brothers on behalf of his dad to bring them some supplies and also just to check in on them, see how they're doing. David then hears this challenge from Goliath, and David gets mad. David gets angry here. Let's continue on now. In verse 28, And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? Verse 30, And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner, and the people answered him again after the former matter. So David gets mad when he hears Goliath's challenge here to the people of Israel, because Goliath at this point is not just defying the kingdom of Israel, he is defying the living God here. And that is the very thing that made David so angry here in this moment. All right, let's just take a moment here and just take stock of the position David is in right now. He's still a young guy. He's been currently serving King Saul as his harp player, as his armor bearer for a short time. And he's been back home with his dad taking care of his sheep, and now he's out just checking in on his brothers. David is not a soldier. In fact, he's not even old enough to become a soldier quite yet. And this young kid, is among these fighting men, these guys who have been training. I imagine big buff dudes up there, all right? And then you got little scrawny David coming in there, okay? And David is asking these guys, why aren't one of you going out there and fighting this guy? Why is this not happening here? And you see his brother's response in just a bit. As I said before, David displays a few courage in a few ways in this passage. You see, when David heard his challenge, he got angry. Not because the Philistine had insulted Israel, but because the Philistine had brought God's honor into question. And David was not going to stand for that sort of thing to happen. He didn't care who it was. He didn't care how tall this person was or how tough they were. David wanted someone to go down there and show the Philistines the power of the living God. And if nobody else was willing to do it, he was going to do it. David wasn't afraid of what that Philistine could do to him. David was confident that God would give his people the victory, as he did for David against that lion and against that bear. Now, that right there is a whole different type of courage that I don't know if many of us would be able to display, let alone a 14-ish boy at that moment. But David also displayed courage in another fashion that I would say is even greater than the one he just did in his anger against Goliath here. David also displayed a courage that is often more difficult for most people. And it's the willingness to stand up for God when your loved ones turn on you. You don't think that sort of thing happens? Yes, it does. I promise you it does. I have known many people in which this very thing has happened. Going to Bible college, I know more than one guy who claimed he had the call to preach on his life, but his family was completely against him, and sadly they did not last long and are not currently serving the Lord in this capacity. It does indeed happen, and I want to encourage you parents, don't you dare be that type of parent for your child. As Pastor said this morning, do not be a chain to your children in serving the Lord. Let them go. Dedicate them. Wherever God would have them go, what He would have them do, let them go. Because the Lord will not be pleased with you in that regard. Let's just look here at how David's brother responds, Eliab, all right? Now, when Eliab heard David's words here, just asking these soldiers, why isn't somebody going out and fighting this guy? Why are you all just hiding from him? Why are you cowering from him? Have you forgotten the power of God that He has given to Israel? And then this is the response that his brother has when he hears his little brother telling him to go and fight this giant. You only came down here to watch the battle, David. You're not even a soldier. Why are you even here? I bet you didn't even leave your sheep with somebody who's going to take care of them for you. And then he goes on to say this. He goes, you can't even take care of sheep properly. I know your heart. I know your pride. I know the naughtiness that is inside of your heart. And we'll talk about that word here in just a second here. He tells him to just go home and leave the fighting to the real soldiers. He goes on to attack David's character as well here. Not only does he attack David for being a young guy who was just visiting his brothers here in this moment, but then he attacks David's character as well. Very interesting how that usually happens when somebody tries to stand for God. He says here, I know the naughtiness of your heart here, David. That word naughtiness literally just means having the quality of being morally wrong. David didn't do anything here. He's just asking them, who's going to go out and fight this guy? Who's going to go and show these Philistines the power of God? That was all he had asked them. It's always very interesting that when someone tries to follow the will of God, there is someone there to discourage them and to attack them in that regard. And sadly, it comes from the home very often. It's a sad thing, but this is a truth here. Matthew chapter 10, verse 36. This is Jesus talking. He says, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. Warning us about this very, very thing that Eliab has sadly fallen prey to and fallen victim to. David just attempting to encourage these soldiers to go and do what he already knows God will do for them. God will give you the victory. You just got to go fight this guy. How much harder is it to stand up to those that you love than it is to stand up to your enemies? How much harder is that to do? You don't want to offend the people you love. You don't want to upset them. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. More than one young person has been discouraged from following God's will by their parents because mom and dad were scared, because mom and dad didn't know what their future held. Not a single one of us knows what the future holds, but we serve the one who does. Would we not then trust our children, trust our young people with the only individual who does know their future and who wants to take care of them and to prosper them? A godly leader must display courage both to their enemies and to the people that they love. David cared more about the will of God than the opinions of other people, including that of his family. And that is a trait that he would actually carry throughout the rest of his life as well. And young people, I would encourage you to adopt that trait. Not to say that you should not care at all about the opinions of other people, but God's will takes precedence in your life. Oh, listen to the counsel of godly individuals. Listen to the advice of your mom and your dad. Yes, but God's will comes supreme in your life. David had the courage to go and fight a lion and to fight a bear. He had the courage to say, who's going to go and show this Philistine where the living God resides? And he had the courage to stand up to his brothers and say, I haven't done anything wrong. You're the ones doing something wrong by not going and doing it. And it would be the courage of a 14-year-old kid that the victory would come to the nation of Israel here this day. Because God will always be with those who desire to serve Him and who put Him first in their lives. So godly leaders, all right, godly leaders display courage at every point in their lives. Adults, last time I checked, courage isn't supposed to stop when you become an adult. In fact, I would honestly say this: which is easier, to do something you're not afraid of or to do something you're terrified of? True courage isn't shown when you're not afraid of something. True courage is shown when you do something even though it terrifies you. I don't believe David went after that lion and that bear with zero fear in his heart. And I don't believe David went out to go and fight Goliath with zero fear either. But his faith in God trumped his fear, just as it should do for each and every one of us. And then lastly, I want us to see this, is that a godly leader must be humble of heart as well. Let's flip over to 2 Samuel now, chapter 12, please. So we've seen how a leader must be diligent. We've seen how a leader has to have courage in their life. But let's also look at this now. A godly leader must be humble of heart here. To give us a little bit of background to what's happened so far here, we're going to be starting in verse 5 of chapter 12. David at this point has been king for some time now, and he has already committed adultery with Bathsheba, and he has already murdered her husband Uriah in order to conceal his own adultery. Immediately after Uriah was then gone, David then took Bathsheba and married her to be his wife. And David may have thought at this moment, okay, the problem's been taken care of, my sin's been covered up here, nobody needs to worry about anything at this point here. But we then see that David is about to learn, or I should say relearn, the simple truth: you're not going to hide a thing from God in your life. And it does not matter how much of a godly person you are or how much good you do in your life, judgment will come for sin no matter whose it is, as it is going to for David here. God has spoken to his prophet Nathan, and he has told him, I have a message for King David. Nathan, I need you to go and deliver it right now. All right. That's the point where we find ourselves here. Nathan has now come to David, and he says, King David, I have a message for you. There were two men. Two men lived in a city, okay? One was rich, one was poor. The rich man had many sheep in his flock, had fields upon fields of livestock. The poor man had one single lamb that he loved and that he fed with his own hand. A traveler came and visited the rich man, and instead of taking a sheep from his own flock to feed this man, he stole that one lamb from the poor man and used that to feed the traveler here. Now, I can already see the brilliance of God in this message here, because what was David before he was ever a soldier or a king? A shepherd. What do shepherds take care of? Sheep. So this would have hit home with David big time here. We're talking about sheep here. David understood how precious each individual lamb was to their owner. This would have hit home with him majorly here. So you see how brilliant God is when he constructs this message for David. And then Nathan then says, King David, give a judgment. What must be done in this? What must be done here? And that's where we pick up in verse 5. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, as the Lord liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and because he had no pity. So David just tells Nathan, this thief, this man, he will repay 4 times as much as what he took. And then he will surely die because of it. And then here, you see Nathan display a great deal of courage as well in this next sentence he has. Because let's remember something here. Nathan is the prophet of God, yes, but he holds no political power in Israel, and he's talking to the king himself here. And he's about to deliver a message that is none too pleasant for anybody to hear. Nathan then hears, verse 7, speaks up. And Nathan said to David, "Thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had not been too little, I would have more so have given unto thee such and such things." Let's pause for a second here. After David pronounces his judgment for this man, Nathan just says, "You are that man, King David." And I imagine David just says, "What? I haven't stolen anything from anybody. I haven't stolen any sheep. I haven't done this." Nathan then continues on here, and this is God talking to David. He starts listing off the things that he had done for David here. He says, "I anointed you to be king over Israel. I then protected you from Saul when Saul wanted to kill you because of how popular you were in Israel. I gave you the kingdom of Israel. I gave you the kingdom of Judah. I gave you your master's house, and I gave you his wives. I gave you everything. And if that had not been enough, David, I would have given you more." But then look here, verse 9. "Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight?" And then here, God reveals to everybody in the room what David did. "Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Amnon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives from before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst this secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun." So God just tells David here, I know what you did. You murdered Uriah, but you used somebody else to do it. You used the children of Ammon, that was a nation that Israel had been at war with. You used them to kill Uriah. If you need any specifics for that, David sent a command to his general Joab, who was also his nephew actually, and he tells him, I want you to send Uriah and his patrol, or whatever you would call them, to the area where the fighting is the most fierce, and then I want you to abandon him there to die. David may not have been the one who did the final striking, but he's the one who gave the order. So God is telling David here, you murdered Uriah, and then you stole his wife after you had already committed adultery with her. And again, I can only imagine that David at this moment is just frozen in his throne right now. He thought he was safe. He thought that nobody would find out about it. But he's reminded here, you cannot hide a thing from the Lord. But then look with me here. Verse 13. Here's where I want you to see a godly leader must be of humble heart. David recognized something in verse 13. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And I just want to pause there for a bit. Let's just think about this for a bit. Here's what has transpired with David since we saw him in 1 Samuel 17. He has defeated Goliath at an extremely young age for somebody. He was made a commander in the army of Israel and was a very successful one. God brought him victory after victory. He was loved and praised by the people of Israel, and he has now finally been made king over all of Israel. David's had a pretty exciting life so far. He's had to go through a great deal. The only individual in Israel that is above David is the Lord himself. Let's just get that real quick. There is nobody above David in Israel aside from God. And here's where we find one of the hardest things for a leader to do. When to humble themselves. When to understand. This passage, we find a great leader, we would call it being called out for their sin. Nathan just proclaims it for everybody. God knows what you did, David, and you're not going to hide it from him. After Nathan then tells this story, he reveals everything to everyone. You murdered Uriah by using the children of Ammon. You stole his wife. You've committed adultery, David. You've done these horrible, horrible things, and God is going to have judgment on you because of it. And this is where we then find the humility that David has in his heart, one we all must have as well. You see, David was the king. Who was this man that he thought he could come and speak to the king this way? You're no military leader. You're no noble in my kingdom. Who is Nathan to come and talk to me, the king, in this fashion? Who was he to talk about things he didn't understand what was happening? Those could have been David's responses. But one thing that leaders need to always be open to is that of godly correction. That doesn't just go for leaders, it goes for each individual. And I understand how it got quiet here for a second. I'll be honest with you, nobody likes being corrected. Nobody likes to be told they're wrong. Men, I think we can all understand how that feels. No one enjoys being told that they're wrong by anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. Let me ask you something. Do leaders know everything? No, absolutely not. And do leaders make mistakes? Absolutely they do, each and every day. The difference between a godly leader and a sinful leader is that they will acknowledge and accept the correction of godly counsel. Nathan at this moment, remember, is a prophet of the Lord. You could consider him, he is a preacher here. And this preacher has just gone to the king to tell him, God knows what you did, David, and you're not going to hide it from him. Again, something that would have taken a great deal of courage from Nathan to do, because David could have had him put to death with a single word. David's anger could have boiled up at this moment just to lash out at Nathan, to say, who's he to talk about things he doesn't understand? He wasn't there. He doesn't know. It wasn't my fault. How often is that our response as well? It wasn't my fault. David understood something. The message that Nathan had just shared with him wasn't from Nathan. It was from the Lord. Nathan was just the spokesman at this moment. David had learned that he couldn't hide his wrongdoing from God. And this is the big thing here. He wanted to get his life right with God again. David is referred to constantly in Scripture as a man after God's own heart, a man who desired God's will to be accomplished more than anything else in his life. And he wanted to make sure he was right with the Lord more than anything. And he just tells Nathan plainly and admits it not only to Nathan, humbling himself before this commoner, we could say. He also says it in front of anybody else who would have been in the room at this time. Says, I have sinned against the Lord. I have done wrong. I have done evil. I need things to be right between me and the Lord. But then also you see how God always responds with that willing heart. If we read the rest of 13, verse 13, it says, And Nathan said unto David, The Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. You see, why did he say, thou shalt not die? David had proclaimed his own judgment just a minute ago. He had said to him, what? This man shall repay 4 times what he gave, and then he will die. David surrendered himself to that judgment, knowing he had done wrong. I have sinned against the Lord. He didn't know what God's response was going to be. He didn't know how Nathan was going to respond to him. I have sinned against the Lord. I need things to be right. This here is a leader showing humility in their own heart. It's very easy for people who are in leadership roles, by again, Fathers, husbands, I'm talking to you here because you are a leader in your home, or should be. We don't have all the answers. Sometimes we're going to mess up. Sometimes we're going to get things wrong. And sometimes God will send a godly person in our life to point that out to us. And as I've already stated, it is not easy for anybody to accept correction from anybody. But a godly leader will recognize in their heart they are not perfect, they don't have all the answers, and this person walks closely with the Lord. Maybe this is somebody I should listen to. Oh, Nathan walked close with the Lord, though, all right. He heard the voice of the Lord himself to share his message with people. David's relationship with God and with other people meant more to him than his pride. He could have denied this whole accusation, saying, "This isn't true, you're just lying, Nathan." He could have tried to cover it up once again here, but he just recognizes, I have done wrong. And I need to be forgiven for that. Oh, he may not have been able to apologize to Uriah at that moment, but he could make things right with the Lord. Just a side note, I think that when David finally got to heaven, Uriah is just staring at him like this. Three things that we just see from the life of David here for a godly leader. We see, firstly, that a godly leader is diligent in his work, wherever they are, whatever capacity it might be. We see that a godly individual will show courage, both to his enemies and to their loved ones, because sometimes loved ones are the greatest hindrances in following the will of God. But then also, and this is the hardest one, I would say, a godly leader is humble at heart. They recognize who they are in relationship to God. Recognize they don't have the answers. They recognize they don't know what's to come. But they need to be right with God more than anything, young people. A lot of the times young people will go through stages when they're really little. They think mom and dad know everything. They get a little bit older and they say, man, mom and dad sure do know a lot. They hit those teenage years and sometimes they think, man, mom and dad don't know a thing, all right? They get a little bit older. They think, man, I know even more than my mom and dad do. They get a little bit older. Maybe I don't know as much as I thought. And eventually you get to the point where you say, I wish I could call my mom and dad and talk to them about everything. Young people, you're going to learn your whole life. And part of being a leader is learning every single day. Even when you mess up and you do wrong, it's an opportunity to learn. Because failure is usually the greatest teacher. David learned this day that he can't hide anything from God and that God will bring our sin to light. I just want to encourage each and every one of us. Look at the life of David and the traits that he characterized for us for a godly leader. Be diligent where you are. Show courage even when it's difficult and inconvenient for you. But be humble at heart and recognize who the Lord truly is. Father, thank you so much for this day. And I thank you, Lord, for the chance that we have had, Lord, just to hear our young people serving you here in your house, Lord, and just to serve their fellow brothers and sisters. Lord, we thank you so much for everything that you have done for us, Lord, and we thank you so much for the life of David, Lord, and how you had shown so many wonderful truths through him, Lord, and through his writings, through his poetry, through his songs. But, Lord, I thank you so much for the traits for leadership we can learn from David's life. I only covered a few of them tonight, and there's so many more that we could have gone to. But Lord, I ask you now that as we just go into this time of prayer, work on the hearts of our young people and work on the hearts of every one of our members to realize that the world still needs leaders, and it doesn't matter what season of life we're in. We can become these leaders. We can become the people you desire for us to be.